I want to start today with a number that, quite honestly, it just stopped me cold. I was reading through the prep material for this deep dive, and I had to reread it 3 times just to make sure I wasn't seeing things.
Yeah, 42%. It is a staggering number.
It's massive. So, according to the source material we are unpacking today, which is Dorothy W. Parker's work, the 42% and the Breaking of America's Foundation, 42% of Americans have deconstructed their faith.
Right.
That is nearly half the country effectively walking away from the belief system that arguably the United States was built on.
And just to clarify right off the bat for you listening, we aren't talking about people just, sleeping in on Sundays or skipping a holiday service.
Right. Not just attendance.
Exactly, not attendance. This is about a fundamental collapse of a psychological and structural foundation. It's a mass exit from a worldview.
And usually when we try to figure out why everything feels so chaotic in the U.S. right now, like the polarization, the shouting matches, the general vibe of everything being broken, we look at politics. We look at the elections, we look at Congress, we blame the other side. But Parker's argument is completely different. She's basically saying, stop looking at the ballot box. This isn't about politics at all. It's about physics.
Yes, physics and infrastructure. Because if you want to understand why the floors are shaking, you don't blame the carpet, you look at the foundation. And in this case, the source argues we really need to look at what she calls the grid.
Okay, let's dig into this grid concept, because when I first read that, I immediately thought of the power grid, electricity, cables, substations. But she's using this as a metaphor, right? Or is it more than a metaphor?
It's definitely a bit more than a metaphor. You should think of it as a shared vibration or a tacit agreement that holds a nation together.
Okay.
For centuries, the U.S. wasn't just held together by the Constitution or the economy alone. It was held together by a highly specific, faith-based infrastructure. Think of it like a load-bearing wall in a house. You don't always see it, but it's the only thing keeping the roof from caving in.
And what exactly is this wall made of?
The source calls it the divine mandate.
Divine mandate. That sounds incredibly heavy, like something out of a medieval history book about kings.
Well, in a way it is, but it was highly operational here. This belief system justified the nation's origins. It provided the absolute moral permission for conquest, for establishing a strict hierarchy, for slavery. It basically relocated responsibility from human choice to divine inevitability.
Hang on, let me see if I have this right. You're saying that if you took land or owned other human beings, this grid allowed you to tell yourself, I'm not doing this because I'm greedy or violent. I'm doing this because it's part of a divine plan.
Precisely. It acted as a massive psychological buffer. It allowed the nation to expand and, frankly, commit violence without collapsing under the weight of its own conscience.
Wow.
Faith was the fuel that kept that grid running. It smoothed over the massive contradictions, like writing that all men are created equal while literally owning slaves. The belief made that contradiction livable.
So it was the glue. But here is the problem with glue. It dries out. Or in this case, people stop buying it. Parker argues that the grid trashed because the fuel ran out. That 42% we started with, they stopped feeding the grid.
And this is the part that I think is so crucial to understand. This collapse didn't happen because of some loud, violent revolution. It wasn't people storming the gates.
That's what's so weird about it. It feels like it should be loud.
But it wasn't. It was a quiet withdrawal. Millions of people, individually, privately, just sitting in their own living rooms, terminated the authority contract.
They just opted out.
Right. They didn't rebel. They just stopped consenting. They stopped agreeing to a system that required them to abandon their own moral compass.
It's like a ghosting. They just completely ghosted the system.
Essentially, yes. And when you remove 42% of the structural support from a building, well, the laws of physics take over. The building shakes. The instability we're feeling right now isn't the system being attacked by some foreign enemy. It's the system realizing it no longer has the frequency, the belief to animate its own form.
That is a wild reframe. We're sitting here terrified of the shaking, thinking it's a political earthquake, but really it's just the building starving to death.
That's a great way to put it. The structure is starving for belief.
But okay, let's play devil's advocate for a second. If this is a structural issue, if it's about faith and physics, why does it look so much like a political fight? I turn on the news, and it's red versus blue, left versus right. It looks entirely political.
That's the trick. The source calls this political distortion as disguise.
A disguise. So the politics is fake.
Not fake, but functional. It's a decoy. Politics acts as cover noise. It absorbs all our attention and emotion. We get outraged, Arguments recycle, the volume goes up to 11, but have you noticed that nothing ever really resolves?
Oh, constantly. Feels like we're running on a hamster wheel of rage. We argue about the exact same things every 4 years, and nothing ever changes.
Exactly. That's because the real work, the structural sorting, is happening underneath the politics. Politics is just the distraction layer to keep you busy while the foundation is being swapped out. Parker actually gets really technical here about some major figures, specifically analyzing Donald Trump and ICE through this physics lens.
Yeah, let's talk about that. And I want to be super clear for the listener. We aren't taking a political stance here. We aren't saying who is good or bad, left or right. We are just impartially reporting on how the source material analyzes these figures as energy or physics within this grid concept.
Right, exactly. This is a purely energetic analysis. The text describes Trump not as a cause of the chaos or a source node, but as a compression amplifier.
Okay, pause. Compression amplifier. That sounds like audio equipment. What does that actually mean in a social context?
Think about a sound signal that is already really messy. If you run it through a compression amplifier, you make the quiet parts loud and the loud parts deafening. You crush the signal together.
Oh, I see.
Trump intensifies the distortion that is already there. He isn't inventing the division. He is pulling ancestral authority memory to the surface.
Ancestral authority memory. That's another big phrase.
It refers to the deep historical questions of the grid. Who belongs? Who rules? Who is in and who is out? When he is active, the grid tightens. It forces those hidden, ugly patterns to reveal themselves. He makes the subtext into text.
So he's basically turning up the pressure in the room so high that the cracks in the walls become impossible to ignore.
Exactly. And then you have ICE immigration and customs enforcement. The source describes them as a boundary enforcement mechanism.
Which, literally, they are. But the source seems to imply there's a psychological component, too.
Yes. Energetically, IC operates as a containment frequency. When a system's internal coherence is failing, when the center isn't holding, the system becomes utterly obsessed with its edges.
That makes a lot of sense.
It activates survival memory and displacement trauma. These figures and agencies create a high-pressure sorting event. They don't unify the country, they force differentiation. They force you to choose a side. It's the literal sound of the old architecture cracking under stress.
It really reframes the news cycle. It's not just policy debates, it's a structure under immense pressure trying to hold itself together.
Mm-hmm.
But the source material uses another analogy that I found, well, hopeful might be the wrong word, maybe clarifying. The caterpillar.
Yes, the biological analogy. This is absolutely crucial for understanding the whole mission of this deep dive. Because if you just look at the shaking, you think it's the end of the world. But Parker argues we aren't looking at the end of America. We are looking at a metamorphosis.
Okay, so let's go back to high school biology.
Yeah.
We've got the caterpillar. It eats leaves, it gets fat, it makes a cocoon.
Right. But what happens inside the cocoon? Most people think the caterpillar just magically grows wings and keeps a distinct body. But that's not what happens at all. The caterpillar actually dissolves. It completely breaks down into what's called imaginal material. Imaginal material.
Basically soup. Genetic goo. It loses its structure entirely.
That's terrifying. I don't want to be soup.
Nobody wants to be soup. It's vulnerable, it's messy, it's opaque. But the caterpillar doesn't negotiate with the cocoon. It has to lose its form to become the next thing. Parker argues the U.S. is currently in the soup phase. It's the enzymatic phase.
Which perfectly explains why everything feels so fluid and confusing. Why we can't get a grip on what is truth anymore. We're in the goo.
We are firmly in the goo. And the key insight here is that this destabilization isn't destruction. It is the destabilization of form without loss of essence. But here is the trap. A lot of people see the soup and they panic. They try to restore the past. They try to force the butterfly back into the shape of a caterpillar.
Make America caterpillar again.
Exactly. But biologically, that's impossible. The frequency has moved on. You cannot legislate the soup back into a worm. That is such a powerful image. We're fighting biology with laws, and biology is going to win every time. Now, this is where the deep dive gets really specific. The source doesn't just leave us in the abstract soup. It breaks down how this collapse of belief is hitting different parts of the country differently.
Yes, the regional sorting. This was fascinating to me because it explains why living in New York feels so totally different from living in Texas or Iowa right now.
Let's take the listener on this tour. Because it's not a uniform reaction. The soup tastes different in different places. Where do we start?
We start in the East.
The East Coast, the birthplace of the nation. The old guard.
Right. And the reaction there is defined by exhaustion.
Exhaustion. I definitely feel that. But why specifically the East?
Think about the density of history there. This is where the origin story is the thickest. The institutions, the Ivy League, the old political machinery. The source says institutions in the East are tired. They are relying on tradition and procedure because the animating spirit, the actual belief in the grid, is completely gone.
So it's like a zombie institution. It's walking around, but there's no heartbeat.
It's ritual without power. It reveals that you cannot preserve origins indefinitely just by repeating the rituals. People in the East are going through the motions, but the energy is flat.
Okay, so the East is tired and running on fumes. What about the South? Because I heavily doubt exhaustion is the word there.
No, the South is reacting with rupture.
Rupture, that implies a real break, a snap.
It's violent. In the South, faith wasn't just about institutions. It was deeply relational. It was bonded to family, to land, to kinship. Your church wasn't just where you prayed. It was who you were. It was your grandma, your community, your safety net.
So deconstruction there isn't just a casual intellectual exercise.
No, it feels like a profound personal betrayal. If you leave the faith, you are betraying your kin. You are breaking the family bond itself.
That explains the intensity we see. The stakes are so much higher.
Much higher. The reaction is high volatility and protection logic. They are fighting to protect the structure because the cost of leaving it is a total loss of belonging. They are trying to hold the rupture together with sheer force of will.
That makes total sense. It's pure survival. Okay, moving inland,
Yeah.
the interior, the Midwest, the flyover states, though I really hate that term.
The source calls this region the connective tissue, and their reaction is improvisation.
Improvisation. That sounds surprisingly practical.
It is. Historically, the interior just had to make things work. When the instruction manual, the belief vanished, they got confused for a minute. But now, they are in a phase of being a laboratory zone.
So while the East is tired and the South is fighting, the interior is just fixing the tractor.
Exactly. They are testing what works functionally, local solutions, practicality. They are ignoring the big, high-level philosophical debates about the soul of the nation and just asking, how do we keep the lights on? How do we feed the community? They were building functioning pockets of reality because they simply have to.
I love that. We don't have a map, so we'll just walk. Now let's go all the way west.
The West. The reaction here is viability and exposure.
The West has always been a distinct beast.
It was never as deeply anchored in that original divine mandate belief as the East or South. So when the belief withdrew, it didn't leave a ruin. It left emptiness or clearance. The West is ruthless. It discards what doesn't work.
It's basically the startup mentality applied to civilization.
Precisely. It demands viability over tradition. If the old way doesn't work, throw it out. The source calls it a preview of a post-belief existence. It's clearer there, but also colder. There's no nostalgia holding them back.
So we have exhaustion, rupture, improvisation, viability. That leaves one more region. The North.
The North. And this might be the most difficult one. The reaction in the North is paralysis.
Paralysis. Why are they stuck?
Because the North historically tried to replace faith with righteousness and ethics. They want it to be technically right, they want it to be the good ones, but without the divine backstop, they are paralyzed by trying to simulate morality with rules.
Oh, I see. It's the endless committees, the complex language codes.
It leads to intense ethical fatigue. They are building complex technocracies to try and force people to be good, but without the heart of belief, it's just stalling. They are terrified of making a mistake, so they don't move at all.
Wow. It really paints a picture of a fractured map. We aren't one nation right now. We are 5 different coping mechanisms in a trench coat.
That is a very vivid image, but yes.
But there is one more heavy topic we have to touch on, and we need to handle this carefully. The source draws a direct line between the loss of faith and the breakdown of racial hierarchy. This is where the rubber really hits the road.
We have to connect this to the bigger picture. Remember that divine mandate we talked about at the beginning? The load-bearing wall?
Right, the thing that justified the conquest.
That mandate didn't just justify taking land, it justified a vertical order of humanity. Race was architecture. It wasn't just prejudice, it was structural. Whiteness was a governing position that was, in the minds of the founders and the culture, justified by God.
So if you remove the God part, if you remove the divine from the mandate,
the vertical order entirely loses its legitimacy. It is no longer natural or ordained. It becomes just arbitrary. It becomes a ladder that no one is actually holding up anymore.
And people are realizing that.
Yeah.
They're looking at the ladder and saying, wait, why are you up there?
Exactly. The source discusses replacement theory, which we hear about in the news through this exact lens. It argues that this fear isn't really about demographics or population numbers, it's the psychological echo of a structure, realizing it is no longer upheld by belief. The fear isn't just change, it's inversion.
Inversion.
The fear that the hierarchy will flip. If the divine order is gone, then the people at the bottom might end up at the top. It's a structural terror.
And the conclusion here, and this is the hard pill to swallow, is that you can't just legislate this away.
No. You cannot dismantle this hierarchy with laws alone, because it wasn't built on laws alone. It was built on belief. It is being dismantled by non-belief. People are simply withdrawing their consent to the vertical order. They are looking at the ladder and saying, I don't believe in this ladder anymore. And a hierarchy without belief is just a precarious stack of cards.
So what does this all mean for us? We've covered the physics of faith, the decoy of politics, the regional breakdown, the racial hierarchy. It feels like we are standing in the middle of a massive demolition site. Where does this leave us?
It leaves us in the soup. But, and this is the most important part of Parker's work, she is very clear. We aren't seeing the end of America. We are seeing the end of the version of America that required belief to excuse itself.
That's a key distinction. The version that needed a myth to function is dying.
Yes. And the shift we are making is from belief to coherence.
Okay, let's spend a moment here. Belief to coherence. That sounds nice, but what does it actually mean in practice? What is coherence?
Think about the difference between a story and a tool. Belief is about agreeing on a myth. We all believe this story is true. Coherence is about functional integrity. Does it actually work? Is it honest? Does it hold weight?
So instead of asking, do you believe in the same God as me, we start asking, can we actually build a water system that works?
Exactly. The future described here is quieter. It's more fragmented. It's not about one big, loud national story anymore. It's about embodied coherence, communities, and structures that hold together because they are real, not because they are ordained or forced.
It sounds grown up,
Yeah.
like the country is finally having to leave home.
That is a great way to put it. It's moving from a childhood reliance on a parent-God mandate to an adult responsibility for our own reality.
It's terrifying, but also kind of liberating.
Yeah.
It means we have to actually be good, not just say we are good because of a mandate.
It is, and I think the most powerful takeaway is that we can't rush the metamorphosis. We have to endure the soup phase. We have to build coherence where we are with the people right around us.
Well, as we wrap up this deep dive into the hidden physics of the nation, I want to leave you listening with one final thought from the source material. It's a question that has been bouncing around my head all week.
It's the question the grid is asking us now.
Right. The grid is no longer asking, what do you believe? It doesn't care about your theology or your political party anymore. The grid is asking, what can you actually carry?
Reality is the only thing left that can hold.
That is definitely something to chew on. What can you carry? Thank you for joining us in the soup today. This has been The Deep Dive. We'll see you next time.